Hey guys, how's it going? Kriparian here. Today I'm going to give you guys an update, sponsored Super Senso video. This is a game that I played for quite some time, a few months ago when it was initially released, but it was only released for a few regions, and now it is released for Europe. It's been released for Europe for I think about 1 day, so you guys can get on the action when there's a lot of people learning the game again, and typically in these stages, it's a great time to pick up these games. I played so much Super Senso, I was so focused on learning the game, I had even Super Senso dreams at some point. So I haven't played for a while, and I played a bit earlier today. Super Senso is a very high strategy game. It's got a lot of the retro art styles and stuff, but it's next gen strategy wise. You really got to be focused to play well, so I thought I would do this video kind of like a casting play-by-play of my experience from earlier, so that's what we're going to do. So kick it off here. After I played a few games, I got a few packs from playing. I ended up opening a few of the new units. I really like playing the Phantasmo deck. He's the Super Senso of my choice. I opened a Saboteur. Saboteur has this new evasion mechanic where it dodges the first attack he takes every single turn, but he has no HP. Ranger, similar to how it used to be a few months back. Medbot, another new unit I haven't played around with before. Basically, at the end of every turn in the AoE style, it's kind of like an X around. You guys will see a game here shortly. He heals at the start of each turn, I believe. They redid the warp card. Warp used to cost 2 when it was max level, and you could just chain warp something. Now it costs 5, and I don't think you could do that very easily then, so it's a totally different card. It gives you a damage boost instead of having a lower cost. Meteor is pretty much the same, and I didn't see too many people running Meteor, but it's been a pretty useful card. If you want to learn the game, Super Senso has a whole bunch of new puzzles for you to check out, and I only played a few of them, but even the first ones that they had originally, they were quite instructive. The leaderboard seems pretty healthy to me. I got to about 3k rating a few months ago, and then I asked them to reset my account so I could show you guys the free-to-play experience. They now have daily rewards. This is a very high skill game. The better player almost always wins, despite some of the stat and card disadvantages, player levels, anything like that. It matters, but if you're better than your opponent, you'll win a lot of the time. So here I am, queuing in one of these highlight games. I'm against an opponent here who's playing Starshot. Starshot is a very interesting Senso. He does a lot of damage, but he does a double tap damage, and he's very highly mobile for a ranged unit, but he has range 2. He doesn't have any flexibility on that, so he has very weak counter attacks, so you have to be very careful with positioning him. And I think my opponent here is a pretty new player. As you'll see, some bad things happen. So, how does Super Senso work? Well, one guy starts on the left, one guy starts on the right. You have these towers there, and these towers are basically units that do nothing, that can't move, but everything in Super Senso has a bounty. So I think I'll highlight a unit here. I think I'll highlight that boomer or something. A unit has damage, it has health. See the boomer here, 2 times 6 damage. The last one there, the energy lightning thing, that's the bounty. So, for instance, that unit there, the Lancer, that was a 2 energy bounty. So if I kill the Lancer, it'll give me 2 pieces of that 9 energy bar thing. And whenever you have a set of 3 energy, your base nukes your opponent's base for a decent bit of damage. But if you complete multiple sets of 3 bars from these bounties on a single turn, you get combos. And the double combo does quite a bit of extra damage. And the triple combo, so if you manage to fill up all 3 bars on the same turn, it's very hard to do. It requires a lot of planning, strategy, and setup. If you're able to do that, you one-shot kill your opponent's base. So your opponent could have just the oldest account, crazy high-level units. If you time it right, if your strategy is good enough and you're outplaying your opponent, you can still win against everybody. That's how I was able to be so successful playing free-to-play some months ago. It is a free-to-play game. Of course, you can buy packs, get units and stuff, speed that up. I'll show you guys there in a moment. It's a mobile game. Play us anywhere. You can play us on iOS, you can play us on Android. I got a link below if you guys do want to check it out. My Senso is Phantasmo. Phantasmo has very crappy damage, very little health, but as you saw there, his ability is like a grip. So whenever he hits someone, he pulls himself towards him, and basically you can make it so you ruin your opponent's positioning. There I noticed my opponent's grouping up the units quite a bit. I noticed a lot of people are not playing around Meteor right now, so if you guys are checking out Super Senso right now, it might be a good idea to try Meteor. I think it's a pretty well meted card. But here I see my opponent kind of trying to rush into me. I don't think it's a very good strategy. The strategy behind my deck here is to just wait, bait, and grip units in range of my others using my Senso Phantasma. So you see there, Starshot does a double hit. Phantasma's counterattack doesn't happen. Counterattacks don't happen also if you finish the unit off. So if the unit has very little HP, it doesn't counterattack if it dies. So my opponent's playing a whole bunch of stuff. Usually in Super Senso, you want to go all in, and this kind of goes very well with one of the new Saboteur units, where he blocks the first hit. You can't go just like a little bit in. You can't just like move your units into range and hope for the best. You either have to start attacking against Phantasma and against a Saboteur, like, you know, aggressively, or you have to back off and build units. But my opponent, I think he's pretty new. He's building a whole bunch of units in the middle of the field. That's certainly a really bad idea, and I actually did on the first game I ended up recording here. I ended up doing a full bar triple combo and one-shotting my opponent's base. That was largely my opponent's poor play rather than my great play, but well, at least you guys got to see how that happened. So if my opponent had like way higher levels on his units and his base, he would have died that same way. So as you see, strategy definitely takes over in this game. I queued up again. I ended up going against the same poor soul Sonya Blade here. I ended up going first. The player who goes first starts on the left, or even levels, but the level advantages and disadvantages certainly wouldn't have mattered last game, as you saw. So I open up with the Ranger. Ranger's very good. Ranger used to be one of the best units in the game, but they've changed it so you can only play one of each unit every turn. So that's a very interesting change. In my opinion, that's the best change they've had since they launched Super Senso, because you can't have as many situational spells. You have to play multiple and a variety of units, because if you have a lot of Senso Gel, which is kind of like the mana mechanic, you have to be able to actually push units on the board. If you have like 3 spells, it's almost impossible to do that. So I think 2 spells is kind of the most, and that makes things quite interesting and more dynamic. It used to be that you'd put 1 Ranger on the left, 1 Ranger on the right, and you'd basically take over the whole board on turn 1. That's certainly no longer possible. So my opponent here is leading with a Jet. A Jet is a very all-in unit, extremely high damage, extremely high mobility. When you first set out a unit, it can move and attack based on how much movement it has. Movement is that second stat there, so you can see the Medic has movement of 4. A Jet has a movement of 5. I think that's the most. I'm not sure exactly. So yes, Jet is an all-in unit, but it has pretty sizable bounty here. So I just wanted to try the Medic unit. I don't think my deck is particularly good for the Medic unit. I think the Medic unit is generally used with units that have a lot of health, but I think it's a bit flexible as well because of this like passive playstyle with Phantasmo and range units. I think you are able to just get better positioning on your Medic rather than actually healing for a lot. Just heal for a little bit, I think, makes some sense. You also see that when my opponent killed the tower, when units go down, there's another new mechanic. These deaths cause the bounty also to drop on the board. There's Senso Gel on the playing field. It's contestable by both players. There I actually use the Warp. The Warp is really powerful with Phantasmo's Grip. It's really powerful with units that go all in. There's like a Sapper unit that does like, he kills himself and does like crazy AoE siege damage, extra damage to buildings. The AoE in this game is kind of like an X, which is kind of like the healing range, as you'll see here in a second. Those units are just so powerful with the Warp, and yeah, basically my deck is built around my Senso Phantasmo to manipulate the positioning in the game. So there I took some damage on my Ranger the previous turn. I thought, what better way to make use of the medic? Let's heal that ranger up there. I ended up nuking my opponent's base. You saw a single combo. Didn't really do that much. A double combo does about 3 times that, I think. And obviously the triple combo kills the opponent in one hit. Yeah, even though I healed the ranger, the boomers actually do a ton of damage. Boomers are like extreme glass cannon units. But yeah, you can see even my ranger dying, it dropped a little bit of Senso gel there. So it's kind of interesting because with ranged units, even if your ranged units die to your opponent's ranged units, that Senso gel is generally on your side of the board. So games are a lot less snowbally than they were in the past. Overall, coming back to the game after a few months, I have to say all of the changes that I've noticed are really interesting and I think improve gameplay quite a bit. I think you guys are going to really love this game. I mean, I was addicted to this game for really intensely and quite for some time. And that was a version of the game that wasn't quite as good as it is now. So I think you guys would enjoy it. Again, if you guys do check it out, please use my link below. Here, I'm just setting up. I got the first bar. I'm trying to see if I can finish off my opponent. The issue with the Saboteur and this medic deck is I don't have any units that I can deploy right away and actually do significant damage. So both the Saboteur and the Ranger have entrenched attack, which means they can't attack and move on the same turn. So that's kind of a problem because you can't attack the moment you deploy those units. So only my medic can attack when I deploy the unit, and that's obviously a very, very weak attack. I thought the game actually froze there for a second, but no, it turns out my opponent conceded. He had enough. That's quite unfortunate for the guy. Now, they have a lot of new features in the game. Here, I think I'm just like completing one of the quests. Some features are obviously the same. They kept the good stuff and they added some more good stuff. The planet system is how you unlock cards by playing more and getting the stars through ranks. The new shop actually allows you to buy specific cards. This is on roughly a daily reset, and the prices, in my opinion, are quite good because a lot of very powerful cards are actually not very high rarity, so it allows you to get those. So here I just decided to blow a bunch of currency, open a lot of these giant chests just so I can open up some of the other cards that, one hand, I don't like that. The Sky Fortress is not new. Some of these cards are not new. Some of them are new, but again, I asked them to reset my account, so I had a free-to-play account. So I didn't have a lot of the units, and they've actually added a lot of content, a lot of new units since I last played. So I thought I'd just open a bunch of these chests real quick and try some of them out. So these chests, they give you quite a lot of very specific cards when you open them. Medbot gets some more of those. Starshot, Longbow. Longbow used to be one of my favorite units, but it's not quite as mobile. That Mothership card, that was always like way overcost, but whatever. Anyway, I'm just like power opening these chests here. You basically get the idea what you could get. I think the amount of contents in each chest goes up as your rank goes up, but so does the cost of the chest. So it kind of balances out. If you have a very specific deck idea that you want to go with and you've just reached that tier in the ranked system that allows you to acquire the cards required, I think that's typically when you want to open up a few of these chests. So here I just went through a few of these units. I remember this is a pretty interesting Senso Kaiju. Used to be a very immobile but extremely high damage AoE. You see that area damage, that X thing? That is area damage. So you pick a target. You can even choose to attack the ground just to get an extra splash effect. So area damage is really powerful. It basically has one more range than it appears that it has. So typically the disadvantage is it's very immobile units, it's very fragile units that are able to deliver AoE damage. The Lancer, I don't know if they've changed some of the stats on the Lancer, but the Lancer was probably the most popular unit that I faced when I played today. Mastermind, same as it was before, at least in terms of the ability. When he attacks something, he switches position with the target that he attacks. He basically kind of kills himself a lot of the time, but it allows you to not only have an additional way to grip your opponents, but you can do like multiple grips in sequence. Creeper, this is a really cool card. I don't remember this ability. I think they either changed or added this card recently. I'm not too sure, but you can deploy a Creeper wherever you want as long as there's an enemy there. So that's just crazy. So I'm like, wow, I gotta put this in my deck. So I upgraded the creeper a little bit, and I'll show you guys how that worked out here in a moment. Just want to check out a few more of the units here. Creeper. All right. So they added a few of these like undead zombie cards. I think the next one I check out, the Zombie Boy. It's very similar to a Saboteur with a few very key differences. So he costs 6. That's certainly a higher cost, but he does similar damage, but it's melee damage. But because it's melee damage, it's not entrenched attack. So it's much more of an active unit. He still has that evade 1, which is very powerful. The evade 1 makes it so your opponent, again, has to kind of go all in on you. And that has a lot of synergy if you're using Phantasmal as your super senso, or similar type of decks or strategies where you punish your opponent for overextending. And you really have to overextend to be able to kill these units that have evasion. Evasion seems like a very powerful mechanic here. Tomb Bomb seems similar to the Sapper, kind of like a cheap way to do a lot of damage. AoE Tomb Bomb is actually pretty cool. You put it somewhere, and a couple of turns later, it just blows up for anything that was in range of that. So I got a few copies of Phantasma from those chests. Thought I'd just check it out and level them up and get in here and crush some other poor soul that's playing right now. Right now, I think there's a lot of fairly new players playing because of the Europe launch, so you shouldn't be intimidated, even though this game has been out for a few months now. I did play mostly inexperienced players today. Here, I think that my opponent's Senso is like a brute. It has so much armor. It does reasonable damage, but not that much. The thing is, there's a lot of units that do multiple sequences of attacks. So you saw in the previous game, my opponent used boomers. Boomers do a lot of damage, or glass cannons. They do range damage, but they do damage in like a double attack. So they like, you initiate an attack and do like rocket launch. So those multi-attack units are very good at shredding armor, especially if they're cheap. Boomer is basically all of what I just said. Now, my deck has none of that. I only have one ranged unit now. I only have the Ranger, and the Ranger has Entrench attack, so I can't attack the turn that I play it. And my other units are melee, so they're going to face some pretty fierce counter-attacking here. So this is actually a pretty rough matchup, even though I just kind of went in to try to test some units. I was actually a little bit worried about this matchup, just because he had some units I haven't seen before, or not seen very much of before, let's say. And yeah, they seem to counter me a little bit. In any case, I went with the game plan to open up with the Ranger there, opening up with the Ranger in position to attack your opponent's tower. The towers have 3 energy bounty, so the idea is you get your opponent's towers pretty low. You start off by getting 1 or 2 energy points to semi-fill in the first bar, and then if you can get a decent combo, you can make it work. I didn't quite know how my opponent was going to behave, so I try to position my units so he can't get to the Rangers at least, and I develop a melee unit with a Zombie Boy to try to take out his Senso if I need to. And it seems like his Senso is actually going directly for my base. So I mentioned like the damage that you get for filling up those energy bars, for getting those combos, your base nukes their base type of mechanics, but of course you can just walk up to your opponent's base and hit it. That's a lot more dangerous, it's a lot harder to do. But in this specific case, that seems like a really good strategy, because I just couldn't really deal with it. My opponent here is actually playing the unit similar to Zombie Boy, the Saboteur, but I think the Saboteur is best played in a mid-range or defensive position. When you go aggressive with the Saboteur, I think his evasion doesn't carry as much as it normally does. So I got a few free kills there. My opponent went with a Sapper. Sapper here, you can see he does AoE damage. He's got that damage in an X. And he does siege damage. So I basically played the Creeper just to block him. I played the Creeper so his Sapper can't run up and blast, a hole in my units or blast my base. I don't know if my opponent is using Warp. Warp plus Sapper is a ridiculous combo. He ended up actually using 2 Sappers to kill my Creeper. Now, when you kill off a unit on your own turn, like the Sappers just did there, your opponent doesn't gain the energy. So even though that seemed like a pretty good trade from my perspective, it probably wasn't that great. It was probably pretty fair there, because not only did he gain some energy and I gained none, but the Senso gel dropped from the loss of both of those units are closer to his side of the board, so he was not getting them right now. Most likely he'll be the one to acquire that extra Senso gel from the gel drops. Another mispositioned Saboteur for my opponent, another free kill. I'm basically ramping up tempo here, but I see my opponent, he's just constantly going for the base. I ended up going for a double combo. I think triple combo is not really happening. Typically I set up my triple combos by killing my opponent's Senso, a tower, and some leftover units, but since my opponent's Senso is a triple armor unit that I can't really deal with, that is not really happening, so I just went for the double combo. Double combo is pretty good. I think anytime you can get a double combo, you should go for it. Single combos, sure, but it's really about the double and triple combos that will allow you not only to seal those wins, but really beat those opponents that are higher level than you. Well, I guess my opponent's level 8 here too, but this is a lot of grinding and smacking the bases with melee units. It's a very different type of game than I typically expect with a deck like the one that I'm playing. So my opponent's attacking my base directly. These zombie boys actually have movement 4. That's a lot. Now the most movement is 5, I believe, but 4 is quite sizable. And for as much melee damage as they deal, I just ended up going for a quick kill there, running up to the base and killing it. So that's basically Super Senso, guys. It's a really fun game. It's certainly something you guys can enjoy on your mobile devices. And yeah, if you guys choose to check it out, please use my referral links below and have fun in the game. Thanks for watching, guys.